Every dream has a price, but sometimes we feel price is too high. What if someone stood by you, believed in you, and gave a chance to rise? Here is your chance. Rathod Science Academy is conducting All India Scholarship Test. It is not just a test, it is a doorway for your dreams. We believe talent should never be stopped by money. So grab your chance and turn your determination into opportunity. Every rank has a reward and avail your reward based on your performance. Top 1 to 50 ranks will get 50% of discount on this online GS Foundation course fee, and 51 to 75 ranks will get 40% of discount, and 76 to 100 ranks will get 30% of discount. This test is going to be conducted on 10th of this September online mode. So anywhere from India you can take this test at 6 p.m. and this test will have 50 questions based on UPSC prelims format. Duration of this test is 30 minutes, and if you want to take this test, registration is mandatory. You have to register by using QR code or you have to fill the Google form. The link is given in the description box, and I wish you all the best. Hello and welcome to Rathod Science Academy. Today in this session we are going to see yesterday's and today's important current affairs appeared in our Hindu newspaper guys. So let's get started with our discussion and let us see the first article. So see the title guys. So see this image first. What can you see in that image? So moon is in the red color, right? So yesterday we had this lunar eclipse. So because of this, the moon color became red. So this event is called as blood moon. Okay, and it is a very important concept in your geography guys. So the key word here that you have to see is blood moon. So here the first important thing that you have to see is why this moon color is becoming red. What is the reason behind this? And second important area that you have to focus is lunar eclipse. So what is this lunar eclipse? And in this lunar eclipse, we have three types of lunar eclipse. So you have to see those three types, and in which type of this lunar eclipse we can say this blood moon concept. And this topic is very important from your GS paper 1 under geography, and you may get directly a prelims based question from this topic called as blood moon guys. Very important. And this topic is important from only your prelims. You can't expect any mains based question from this area. Okay, now let us see this. What is this blood moon? Blood moon is nothing but it is a total lunar eclipse where the moon takes on reddish copper color instead of its usual white glow. So normally what is the color of the moon? Moon is like bright white in color. So normally what happens in this total lunar eclipse? So normally in this lunar eclipse we have three types of lunar eclipse. I'll be showing that what are those three types. But in this total lunar eclipse, normally here moon will appear in this copper reddish color. So because of this, this moon is called as blood moon. And why it happens? So actually during this total lunar eclipse, so do you know what is this lunar eclipse? So when this eclipse happens, so whenever sun, earth and moon, or sun, moon, earth comes in a straight line, then that is called as eclipse, right? So in this lunar eclipse, what happens? Sun, earth and moon comes in a same line. That means, so here we have sun, and next we have earth, and next we have moon. So in this way, whenever these three come in a straight line, this is called as lunar eclipse. Okay, then what happens here? So earth will block the sunlight which is falling on this moon. So here because of this, we can get this lunar eclipse. And in this lunar eclipse, we have three types of this lunar eclipse. So see here, you can see this is sun, this is earth, and this is moon. So earth will be blocking the light on this moon in this lunar eclipse. So completely blocking of light happens in this umbra region, and in this penumbra region, so partial light can pass. So in this lunar eclipse, we have three types of lunar eclipse. So first one is penumbral lunar eclipse, partial lunar eclipse and total lunar eclipse. So in this total lunar eclipse, the complete blockage of this light from this sun by this earth happens. And because of this, what happens? So whatever the rays which are there here, so because of this refraction, that rays will appear like red in color. So because of this refraction of red light by the surface of the moon, so moon will be appearing in that color. So actually the colors that we can see, like you can see different colors like blue color, red color, green color, different colors that you can see in our nature, right? So that is nothing but the rays which are reflecting back by that objects. That is the color that we can identify, that we can see. So in the same way, in this total lunar eclipse, what happens is direct sunlight is blocked by the earth which is falling on this moon. So because of this, what happens, as you all know that Earth atmosphere is having different layers. So we have troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, ionosphere, thermosphere, right? So in this Earth atmosphere, what is happening here? The bending of this, some light is happening, and that light will falls on the moon, and that light is reflected back by this moon, and that will be appeared in this reddish color. So actually, blue light will fall on this moon, and that is reflected back by this red light because of this long wavelength of this red color. So because of this, we can see this moon color will be appearing as red rather than this normal white in color. So this is called as blood moon, and this blood moon is seen only in this total lunar eclipse. Whenever there is a complete block of this light which is falling on this moon by this earth, so then only we can see this blood moon. Okay. Yeah, now let us see the next article, guys. See the title. NHRC sends notice to MP over deaths of infants from rat bites. So actually this article is talking about one grave concern that we have in our healthcare sector. So actually, especially in our healthcare sector, we have private and as well as government hospitals, right? So if you take this healthcare sector or health sector in India, so normally we have two types of hospitals. So first one is public hospitals or government hospitals, and next one here is private hospitals, and sometimes in some areas we can also see aided hospitals, that is government aided private hospitals also we can see, but majorly we can see this government hospitals and private hospitals. So here in this government hospitals we can see lots of challenges. So what are the problems or challenges that we can see in this government hospitals? Yes, lack of facilities, lack of infrastructure, and even there is no proper patient to doctor ratio they will not maintain. And this one is there is no lack of proper medicine facility also, and even we can see lots of negligence here, right, compared to that of private hospitals. So what is the problem here is, especially in this government hospitals now, because of lack of facilities and lack of sanitation. Even this is also an important problem. There is no proper sanitation, lack of sanitation, lack of facilities. There is increased number of rats in government hospitals in MP. Okay, because of this there is increased rats or rodent population. So because of this, what happened in this child care unit or infant unit or neonates unit, so these rats came and bited newborn children in this wards. And because of this, what happened, which disease can be caused by this rat bite? Cholera. Next. So actually what happens here is rat bite is very dangerous, because you know that these rats, they are mainly dependent on which kind of food? Grains. Apart from that, even they'll consume meat and rotten meat, like these things. So because of this, in that mouth they'll be having lots of microorganisms. So because of this, it will cause severe blood infections in children. And because of this, finally death of two child or two newborn people happened in this hospital. So because of this rat bite, because of this lack of proper facilities and sanitation in this government hospital, it led to the loss of life of two children. That means, is there any violation of any fundamental rights, guys? So here fundamental rights of children got affected. Which fundamental rights? Article 21, right? Article 21 talks about right to life and personal liberty. So because of this, now NHRC came into picture. So what is this NHRC? National Human Rights Commission. So this National Human Rights Commission said that because of this rat bite in this hospital in MP that led to the loss of 2 people rights. So it is nothing but violation of human rights. So whenever there is violation of human rights, so this will come into picture. So actually where you can see this article, you can see this article from GS paper 2 under polity. So in polity you have this topic called as constitutional and non-constitutional bodies. So in that NHRC is very important, and NHRC is a non-constitutional body. Okay, you have to see about some basics of NHRC. And here it is talking about health, right? So health you will be studying in your GS paper 2 under governance point of view, and this topic is important from your both prelims and as well as mains. So whenever you're writing about any challenges regarding healthcare sector in India, so you can add this article as a direct example that there is lack of sanitation, there is lack of proper infrastructure in this government hospitals, which is leading to the loss of death. There you can add some example. Recently 2 newborn children, they died in MP hospital. And this one is from NHRC point of view, you can get prelims based question. Like they may give question like consider the following statements regarding NHRC, and they'll give you 3 to 4 statements, and they may ask you like how many statements are right, which statement is right, or like that you may get a question here. Okay, so you have to see in detail and remember this case study and write this case study in your governance topic backside of your running notes. Okay, so now let us see some facts regarding this NHRC. So what is NHRC? NHRC is a non-constitutional body. It mainly focuses on protection of rights. So which rights it will be focusing on? It will focuses on rights related to life, liberty, equality and dignity of individuals. So you may get a question in your prelims based on the statements, right? Like for example, consider the following and find out which of the following are correct, which is related to the protection of rights, which is ensured by NHRC. It is focusing on only these 4 areas like life, liberty, equality and dignity. Other than this, it will not enter into other arena outside of these 4 important things, guys. And this one here is these rights are guaranteed by our Indian Constitution and even our international conventions, because right to life and liberty comes under Article 21 of our Indian Constitution, and even lots of international conventions which mainly focuses on protection of human rights. And actually these fundamental rights are enforceable by our Indian Constitution, so Indian courts. And this one here is, if you see when this had been established. So here NHRC had been established on this 12th of October 1993, and as I said, it is non-constitutional body. So normally if you see about the bodies in our country, so we have mainly 3 types of bodies. First one is constitutional bodies. Next one is statutory bodies, and next one is executive bodies. These are the 3 types of bodies we can see. So what are these constitutional bodies? So if there is any article in our constitution talks about that body. For example, we have Union Public Service Commission, UPSC, you know this, SPSC, you know this, right? So if there is any commission for ST, commission for OBC, so like that, if you are having any article related to that, then it is called as a constitutional body. So if any act, so here we have legislature, so legislature will make the act, and if it is given assent by the president, then that will becomes an act, right? So if you have any bill, so this bill will be passed in the house, and after passing in the houses, our president will give assent, that is nothing but sign. So after this it will be an act. So bill will becomes an act. So if there is any act which talks about that so and so body, then that is called as statutory body. So constitutional body is nothing but articles in our constitution talks about it. Statutory is nothing but if there is any act which led to the establishment of that body is called as statutory body. And executive body is nothing but if there is any, in case of urgent public importance, whenever president through his order, that body is formed, is called as executive body. Okay. So these are the 3 types of bodies, and you may get a question regarding this differences between constitutional body and statutory body. Okay. Only if there is any article in our constitution talks about it, it is called as constitutional body. If there is any act talks about it, it is called as statutory body, or even we can call it as non-constitutional body, because it is nowhere written in our constitution. Okay, so here you have to see, and in your polity GS paper 2, in your even Lakshmikant, there is a separate chapters regarding this constitutional bodies and as well as and as well as this non-constitutional bodies. You have to see that very clearly, and you have to make a clear-cut notes, because every year you will get at least 1 or 2 questions from this constitutional bodies and non-constitutional bodies. Very important. So if you see some facts regarding this, so this body which had been formed under Protection of Human Rights Act of 1993. Okay, so on which act based this was formed is nothing but, here we have Protection of Human Rights Act of 1993, and later on it had been amended many times based on the requirements, based on the need. Okay, and actually it is based on the Paris principles, and it is mainly focusing on promoting and as well as protecting of human rights. And very important topic in this body, you have to see who are the members. It is nothing but composition of this body is very important. So here this commission mainly consists of chairperson, one will be chairperson, and we have 5 full-time members, and even we have 5 deemed members in this commission. And who will be the chairman? Chairman will be normally Chief Justice of India, very important. Or like we can also take Supreme Court judge. And what is the tenure of these people? Normally, this chairperson or chairman and as well as the members will be appointed by the recommendations of a 6-member committee, and who will appoint them? President will be appointing them. And this committee which will be giving recommendations will include Prime Minister, Speaker, Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha, and even leader of opposition party. Very important. And next one here is chairman and members can hold an office having the term of 3 years or until they reach age of 70. It is very important. And what is the function of this NHRC? The first one is it is having powers of civil court. So you may get a question here in this way, like consider the following statements regarding NHRC. It has been established under this Human Rights Protection Act. Second statement they will give, like it is having the power of criminal court. So do it have the power of criminal court? No, it is having the power of civil court. So in this way, they will give you, they will create confusion in your examination hall. You should be very clear. Okay. And this one is it is empowered to utilize the services of central or state government officers or investigation agencies for investigation of human rights violation. If there are any case of human rights violation, they will be investigating regarding that cases. And even it can investigate the matters within 1 year of their occurrence. So if something happened now, so within 1 year they can investigate that. Okay, so that is the thing. And whatever the functions are there, they are just recommendatory in nature. They are not binding also. So this is one important loophole that we have in this NHRC. Okay, now let us see the next article, and it is a very important article of this year who are going to read this 2026 prelims. Okay, so that is 100 years of self-respect movement. So in your history, you can expect questions. So how you can expect questions from your history? So history means nothing but that happened in the past, right? So you have to see last 25 years events, what are there. So if you are giving 2026 examination, you have to check whether there are any events that are significant, like 10 years ago events, 25 years ago events, 50 years ago events, 75 years ago events, 100 years ago events, 125 years ago events, and 150 years ago events. So here for sure, if there is any event which we are celebrating 100 years of anniversary that year, for sure 100% there will be a question. And this year in 2026 there will be a question regarding the self-respect movement for sure, guys. And please mark it in your materials or in your book, so that you can not miss that topic for sure. So whatever the question which comes from that topic, you have to be in a condition or in a situation to answer that. That means you need to have the 360 degrees analysis of that topic, guys. So this article is talking about looking back at 100 years of self-respect movement in Tamil Nadu. So actually, this movement was founded in the year 1925 in Tamil Nadu by one famous person called as E.V. Ramaswamy. Okay, and he was also known as Periyar at that time. And actually, he was influenced by some other reformers like Jyoti Rao Phule and as well as Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. And actually, you have to see in detail about that person. So on this, you may get questions regarding that person and what books he released or published. So what are the things that he did in this moment? Everything that you have to see. So actually, he published Kudi Arasu. It is a Tamil weekly, and he also took part in this Vaikom Satyagraha. That means you may also get some questions regarding in other movements where he had been participated also. So he also participated in this Vaikom Satyagraha, and you have to see this as well. And the important objective of this self-respect movement is to eradicate caste system. And even you have to connect your governance, society, and social issues topics with this history, because whatever the social evils that we have, so we have to connect with that history, right? So even today we have caste based discrimination, and even today we can say certain caste people, they are not allowed to enter into temples. And even we have this manual scavenging related deaths. So these are some evidences which mainly shows that yes, still today also we have this caste based discrimination in our country. So here earlier, which kind of movements which were done by our social reformers, so from that point of view we can connect this. So actually to eradicate this caste system in our country, which was a famous movement, that is self respect movement. Who did this? E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar. Okay, so actually this movement is focusing on racial thinking, and we want to oppose the dominance of Brahmanical traditions. So actually what happened? So during this Vedic period, this caste system came into existence, right? So we have topmost caste, that is Brahmins, next is Kshatriyas, next is Vaishyas, and next is Shudras. And actually this Dalit people, that is scheduled caste people, they are outside of this Chaturvarna system, right? So why this caste system came into existence? Because of this Brahmanical dominance only. So actually this important aim of this movement is to remove this Brahmanical dominance, or to oppose this dominance of this Brahmins in that region. And the important objective mainly they said is they focused on racialism, they focused on equality, and they focused on improving of individual dignity of their life. And even they are opposing social hierarchy. Social hierarchy is nothing but in this social ladder or in this society, certain group of the people are like dominated over another. That is called a social hierarchy. And even some famous women also participated in this movement. The famous women leaders are two persons you have to make a note of this. First one is Anai Meenambal, next one is Veeramal. So these are the two women leaders who participated in this self-respect movement apart from this Ramaswamy. Okay, next one here is, if you see the features of this movement, so they went for self-respect marriages. Okay, so actually, as you all know that marriage is one important event in the life, and normally without Brahmins we will not go for marriages. So because whenever we are calling this Brahmins for each and every event, so we are showing this dominance of this Brahmins in that society, right? So in this moment they started that allowing the marriages without calling this priest, without calling this Brahmins. So this is the first important step they took. And next one is they also focused on movement opposite this Devadasi system. So what is this Devadasi system? So actually girls will be given or dedicated to the temples, especially that girls will come from the low caste people. So whenever these girls, they are dedicated to these temples to serve the god, means what happens here? So again this class based dominance we can see there. So why is upper caste or upper class people, they are not giving their girls to why they are not dedicating their girls to the temples, only why from the low caste? So here they also opposed this Devadas system, and they opposed this caste based discrimination, and even they also want to remove these restrictions on this widow remarriages. And next one here is they want to promote the social equality. Okay, and if you see the self-respect conference in 1929, they formed one conference, and Periyar held this first provincial conference at this Chengalpattu, and it was led by one more person. Actually, this conference, why is to spread the awareness about this movement and what they are doing and how they want to eliminate the social evils in our country. And what is significance of this movement? So because of this movement, they instilled dignity of life and they focused on liberty. And even there was high rate of awareness about this caste-based discrimination against us, in our society, and they were against this caste-based discrimination. And they focused on non-Brahmanical dominance, especially that led to the foundation of Dravidian politics. Okay, and they focused on welfare governance in this Tamil Nadu region. So this is one of the important case study that we can take. Normally, if you're talking about any answer or any idea regarding this caste-based inequality, caste-based voting system, or like Brahmanical dominance, or whenever you're writing about widow remarriages, everything, you can use this self-respect movement as a case study or as an example, like so when it happened and how it led to a lot of change in our society. So especially in your society and social events, you will be seeing about this topic of self-respect movement, guys. Okay, now let us see the next article, see the title. Making of an ecological disaster in the Nicobar. So see who is the writer of this article. Sonia Gandhi, the chairperson, Congress Parliamentary Party. So here, whenever you are picking up the articles, you have to pick up based on the writer also. Okay, so actually, she's one important personality, right? So we have to see this kind of articles. Already you know about what is this Nicobar, why this Nicobar is in news, why it is related to ecological disaster. Tell me, why it is in news? So where is this Andaman and Nicobar located? So this is our Andaman and Nicobar, right? It is located in Bay of Bengal and is one of the important island of our country, right? So why this Nicobar is in news? So we are going for developmental project in this Nicobar region. That is called as Nicobar Development Project. So what is this project is about? So we are going to develop one ship port or transshipment port, and we are going for development of airport, and we are going for development of hotels, restaurants, etc. Right. So because of this, we are saying that it is going to have ecological impact. What will be the ecological impact if you are going for these developmental projects here? So first one is we have to cut millions or thousands of trees here. Okay, we have to go for cutting of tree. That will lead to the decreasing of tree cover. So why this decreasing of tree cover is one important concern here? Because this region is having which kind of forest? Tropical evergreen forest. Okay, so because of this, the forest cover will be decreasing. Whenever this forest cover decreases, what will be the impact? There will be reducing of carbon sinks, right? The area which will be absorbing carbon dioxide will be decreasing. So because of this, what happens? There will be increased carbon dioxide emissions. That will lead to greenhouse gas or that will lead to greenhouse effect or increasing of greenhouse gases. So that will lead to increasing of climate change because of this global warming. That is a one important cause of concern. And the second important cause of concern here is in this region we have some endemic animal species. That means these animals are seen only in these regions of Andaman and Nicobar. For example, leatherback turtle. So because of these development projects, because of this habitat loss, so these animals which are endemic in this region, they will be in danger now. That is the second important reason. And third important point that I can say is this Andaman and Nicobar region is very, very famous for certain tribal groups. Which are those tribal groups? Andamanis, Nicobaris, Shompen tribes, Sentinelese tribes. So it is also having impact on those tribal people livelihood and lifestyle. Okay, so these are the three important things that we have to focus. And if you want to focus from the geography point of view, actually these Andaman and Nicobar are nothing but the extension of Himalayas. That means what happens? If you are going for any developmental projects in this ecologically sensitive areas or geologically unstable areas, Will that be sustainable? No. Again, there is an issue of earthquakes in this region, and actually Nicobar is very famous for one active volcanic island in our country. In our country, only in this Nicobar region, we have one active volcano island, that is called as Barren Island. So actually, there is also a concern that this volcano can erupt because of this developmental projects, and again it will cause us lots of disaster. So these are the four important points they said in this article, guys. That's it. So now let us see exactly what they gave in this article. The first one here is Great Nicobar project, or this Great Nicobar development project is resulting in major ecological disaster, because we are going for a very large scale, very huge scale of deforestation. That is nothing but cutting down of trees, and because of this what happens, habitat loss will happen, so that there is decreasing of biodiversity in this region, and even wildlife disruption can happen, and even we have to go for displacement of the tribal people who are there in that region. So because of this what happened, it is going to have a lots of impact in that region. So here Indian government approved this Great Nicobar infrastructure project, and they are going for building of a port that is called as transshipment port, and they are going for building of international airport and even power plant, and even they want to go for development of hotels, restaurants in that area, so that we can boost tourism in that region. And actually, to make way for the construction of about 130 square kilometers of primary tropical forest, which is having more than 10 million trees, is being cleared. So you can see how many trees we are going to clear for this project, and we are going to have around 130 square kilometers of area for these projects. So because of this, it is going to have the grave loss of trees. And next one here is, there are certain key wildlife habitats in this region. The first one is Galathea Bay Wildlife Sanctuary is there here, and it is very important for endangered species like leatherback turtle. So we are going to lose this population of this leatherback turtle if you are going for this development of this project. And why now it is in news? Because, so why it is going to cause any ecological disaster is because, so this island location is very much important geopolitically, because if you want to improve safety and security in this Indo-Pacific region, and if you want to increase the trade with other countries, so this is a very important point where we can develop the ports. But here what is happening here is, it is going to have some ecological impact. And this one here is, environment impact assessment had not been it. So recently we discussed one article, I think 7 to 8 days back. What is that? So here Andaman and Nicobar Tribal Council is saying that there is no proper in environment impact assessment they took, and they didn't take this permission from this local tribes. Local tribes, they don't know about this project, and they don't know about how they will be displaced, everything that had been not completely done, but they got the clearance. So that is the thing that we discussed in, I think, 7 to 8 days ago. So this is also one important concern. They said that government policy had been failed, but they took environment clearance for the starting of this project. And this one here is, even government is not focusing on proper compensatory afforestation. So compensatory afforestation is nothing but, if you are felling down one tree here, so we have to go and we have to plant that kind of tree in other area. So here we are going for this massive deforestation here, but where we are going to replant this kind of trees, there is no clarity for the government itself. So because of this, there is a clear cut afforestation flaws we can see. So whether we are going to plant these type of trees in this Haryana or Madhya Pradesh, we don't know. So that what is happening, we are going to lose lots of biodiversity in this region. And what is the impact of this project, guys? The first one is, we are going to lose biodiversity, especially we are having certain species like long-tailed macaque. Macaque is nothing but, it is related to monkey species. And this one is, we are going to lose some crab-eating macaques also, and even we are going to lose this leatherback turtle, so that we are going to have lots of destruction of biodiversity. And this one here is, even there are also lots of threats for this ecosystem, especially marine ecosystem. This project, which is also going to endanger this coral reefs in this region, and we are not following even coastal regulation zone things also. And next one is even that will be having lots of impact on this wildlife, and even especially we are going to displace Shompen and as well as Nicobarese tribes. So because of this, it is going to have a lot of impact on this tribal livelihood, tribal development, everything. And next one here is there are also certain denial of rights for these people now. So normally this Andaman and Nicobar is very much famous for the scheduled tribes. And what is their livelihood? They'll go to the forest and they'll collect this minor forest produce or whatever the forest available things, and they will sell in the nearby markets. So now what happens if you're going for development of these projects here? So these tribal people, they will be not having access to the traditional forest rights. So this is also one important problem that we have. And this one is this island is very important because it is extension of Himalayas and it is located in this geologically unstable region. So if you're going for this developmental projects or infrastructure in this region, obviously they will not sustain because they are having vulnerability to earthquakes, and as well as we have barren island in this Nicobar region. So because of this, it is very difficult. It may cause lots of disasters in our future. That is the thing which mainly said, guys. And there is one more article, see the title, guys, Graying the Grave, Graying with Grace. So this article is talking about changing population dynamics require a policy reorientation for governments. So this article is talking about TFR. So what we discussed in our last class regarding TFR, there is decreasing of TFR in our country. So what is the total replacement rate now? That is 2.1 rate. So now it had been decreased to 1.9. So actually total replacement TFR in India is 2.1, but now it had fallen to 1.9, and even some urban areas it had been fallen below 1.5. And especially because of this decreasing of TFR, what happened? There is increasing of elderly population, and even in future generations we will not have the engaged populations. So because of this, it will be having impact on our demographic dividend, right? So that is the thing which mainly said here. So this article said about everything regarding TFR, in which state how much TFR is there. So please make a note of this from your state, especially see from your state like what is the present TFR in your states, and if it is high, you have to see what are the reasons why TFR is high, and if it is low, you have to see what are the reasons why TFR is low. So in last class we discussed about lots of reasons why TFR is affecting. Yes or no? Because of women empowerment, because of financial independence of women, because of late marriages, and because of social equality, gender equality, because of feminist movement. So all these things that we discussed, right? So you have to see from your state what are the reasons which are contributing for this decreasing or increasing of TFR from your state, guys, because it will be like your interview question. And this one here is, they said only two things here. The one important thing they said is, yes, there is reduced mobility, there is reduced financial or universal access for this mobility, and physical and mental care facilities, social support services are also decreasing day by day. So here, a young nation after all will require a massive realignment to be ready to serve the needs of growing population of elderly. So actually the problem here is there is going to be decrease of dividend, demographic dividend. On another side, there is going to be the increase of elderly population. So whenever elderly population is increasing, do government need to support them or not? Because this elderly population will become burden on the younger population. So government will be trying to provide normally pensions for them, and government will be providing insurance for them. For example, if you see the recent update regarding this Ayushman Bharat, what is the recent update? So people above 70 years of age, irrespective of their status, they will be getting insurance, right? That means if there is increasing of elderly population, will it leads to increasing of burden on the government? Yes, of course. So because of this, government is saying that, this article is saying that government need to take proper policy measures based on the increasing of elderly population, because it is going to increase its fiscal or financial burden in the future. And apart from that, how government can increase this young age population, because already you know that India is the largest populous country in the world. So how it has to maintain this problems of this demographic dividend and as well as elderly population. So we have to come up with a proper policy. That is the thing which mainly said here. So here you have to think about what problems we can get if there is completely increasing of elderly population, or if there is completely decreasing of the newer generation, and how can we maintain a proper balance between this elderly and as well as younger population. You have to think about this, because you have to give the suggestions for the government in future. So from now onwards, think in this way. Okay, so these are the important topics that appeared in our today's Hindi newspaper. By this I'm concluding. Thank you so much guys for watching, and please do like this class and share this class. And don't forget to subscribe to Rathore Science Academy, and you can follow us on our event Instagram page, where we are providing prelims questions with answer and as well as mains question with model answer, and also current affairs in short guys.